Mideast Realities, a unique half-hour highlighting the real Middle East. It is a program of information that government and media often misrepresent or just don't want you to know. Get the news without bias. Facts without distortion. And most importantly, analysis from the experts. With your host and chairman of the Committee on the Middle East, Mertv Sd. Each week, this program will feature an interview, discussion, or an event to help viewers understand the complex situation in today's Middle East, and especially the realities of U.S. policies toward that crucial region of the world. Mideast Realities.
Welcome to Mideast Realities. I'm Omar Kura, your guest host for Mideast Realities TV program. MER tries to bring you unique interviews that would focus on the complex realities of today's Middle East. We try to cover topics such as the so-called peace process, the human rights situation in Middle Eastern countries. Last week we began a series of an interview that I've conducted when I was in Palestine recently. I've conducted the interview with Mr. Mohammed Abu Harthiyah, the General Director of the Al-Haq Human Rights Group based in Ramallah in Palestine. Mr. Abu Harthiyah spoke about the continuing violations of the Palestinian human rights in the West Bank and Gaza Strip by the Israeli occupation forces and the Palestinian Authority. This week we'll bring you the second part of the interview with Abu Harthiyah. Please sit back and enjoy this interview.
This issue was delayed to the final status, which gave a chance to the Israelis to be from one side to continue violating those agreements and to expand settlements. We all know that most of those settlements were built by the hands of Palestinians, and even Palestinians who are today in a leadership position in the Palestinian Authority. What they declare is different from what the actual role they are playing to combat the expansion and building up new settlements and the confiscation of land in the occupied territories. Because if the Palestinian Authority is arresting people who attack settlers, it shows that there is a policy not to combat settlers in a violent way. When it's a peaceful protest against settlement, the Palestinians would fall victims to those soldiers who injure them and arrest them and beat them, and to the settlers to continue aggression. The last also announcement by Shamir by saying you have to occupy all the hills in the West Bank as soon as possible. It is a clear recall to the Israeli settlers to violate also the Palestinians' rights. It is also a clear way by saying to the settlers, we forgive you for any violence or illegal action. It's giving them a free hand to attack the Palestinians. On the other hand, the Palestinian Authority is not taking real steps. For example, if you look at the budgets, distribution of budgets by the Palestinian Authority, they are not giving much attention to the areas close to the Green Line and who are threatened by more expansion of settlements. You will find that there is no organized campaigns against settlements. there is only the statements by the Palestinian Authority, but there is no real action on the ground by the Palestinian Authority. We all know that because it's how weak we are today in negotiations, because also the pressure the Palestinian Authority is under. But at least if you have to give the Palestinian people the right to defend themselves from the settlements and settlers. Concerning the issue of corruption, as you all know, there was a report by the General Controller some years ago, and this report showed the scale of corruption in administration, in financial resources, in the expenditures of the Palestinian Authority. This report was criticized by many Palestinians for different reasons. For example, the Legislative Council have criticized this report because it shows inaccuracy in many of its chapters. And it was criticized by the Palestinian people also because it affected the continuous support by the donor countries, and it shows that we are not responsible for the money that we receive. I believe that the problem is not with how we evaluate this report, but with the action that was taken after this report. By voting for confidence for the new government established after all those threats by Legislative Council members, by the Palestinian people, that there should be prosecution for many persons whom their names were mentioned in this report, for bringing those people before trial who they had evidence that they were responsible for corruption in the Palestinian Authority. Giving the confidence, it shows that we are giving confidence to more corruption, and this is the problem that we see. The report of the Legislative Council about corruption also showed that there is some issues that they agreed with the General Controller about, and some issues which is not. But if we see the policy, how this issue was closed, we see that it was a smart way to stop the investigation into more corruption. It gives free hand to those who were responsible for corruption to be more corrupted. I think that those two reports have played a vital role in combating corruption, which was on a wide scale. It did not stop corruption, but at least it shows that some corruption have stopped, but now those who are corrupted became more careful to be captured. But corruption continues, and maybe in a different means. The main issue is how there will be responsibility from the executive authority to bring those people to justice and to make them pay for what damage they have caused the Palestinian Authority. It's not to evaluate whether the report was detailed or not, whether the report was accurate or not, but there is a need today for having a Attorney General in the Palestinian Authority after the resignation of the second Attorney General in Palestine, who should have the full responsibility to investigate every small incident of corruption, of violating the authority by the executive authority personnel, and to bring them to justice. Without having this position, by continuing to have this position empty from responsible person, we would still have to expect more corruption. About the role of the Legislative Council, I would tell you that I myself have seen lots of changes by the Legislative Council. I did not have high expectations from the Legislative Council before it was established and during the elections and after the elections. But today I think I would have a different view about it. I think that, and as you all know, that only one major faction that participated in the elections, which is the Fatah movement, and other small factions. So it has like one side, those who are the pro-process, peace process, who participated in the elections, and there were many opposition groups who boycotted the elections officially. So this did not give us lots of hopes about the role of the Legislative Council, and many people expected that it would be a tool in the hands of the executive or the head of the Palestinian Authority to show that it is a democratic society. But I think that the mistake was that the Palestinian Authority itself had stopped supporting its own legislative power. So they have put them in the side of like an enemy for its power. And this caused at the beginning a problem to many of the members. On one hand, they are pro-peace process, they are loyal to the executive authority, they are loyal to the Palestinian Authority. And on the other hand, they have responsibility to their people who elected them and elected them for their programs. So at the beginning, there were many dialogue among different groups in the Legislative Council. What is their role? It is the first Legislative Council. It's the first experience for all of the members. And because it's the first experience, they would learn a lot. Many of them have learned very quickly. Some of them have confused between their role as an elected person in a legislative council, which is a professional position, which is an employment position for him, and between his role as a political leader in a faction, and also as being loyal to the peace process. By time, they found that they are not welcomed and they are not accepted by the executive authority, because they have exceeded their role that the executive have expected from them, and they started to work professionally. The moment they started to work professionally and take responsibility, they were combated and confronted with the executive. So many of the laws that were passed by the Legislative Council were not signed by the President, which showed the weaknesses of this council. On the other hand, it's the first democratic experience that we should exploit to the maximum of it. As it is the first experience, they expect more support from the people and more understanding. They did not understand their role themselves at the beginning. Some of them were doing both jobs, legislative and executive. And some of them have made many mistakes and damage to the democratic process, because they thought that their role exceeds also being a legislative member. I think that today they have more support from the people, because they were the only real opposition inside the one side authority, the one vision authority. And now you could see that even they were elected from one or two factions or three factions, now they are sitting as opposition and government. And those who are sitting in a position are playing a very vital role and very important role at the time when the real opposition, the political opposition outside the Legislative Council in the Palestinian Authority, is not playing a constructive role in a democratic process. So the more they learn, the more power they have, the more obstacles they have received from the executive. After 3 years or 4 years of Legislative Council life, we started to see the differences between also different members of the Legislative Council. For example, many of them became very active on the issue of human rights and freedoms of the people. Many of them have been very active on also continuing to resist the Israeli violations, the continuous violations of land confiscation, of building settlements. And many who showed also that they are still loyal and pro-authority with its mistakes, with its problems, with all what negative things that they are doing. In the last incident, also it showed that the Palestinian executive authority is not happy with the role of the Legislative Council. As you know, some members of the Legislative Council, and it never happened in the history of democratic societies, that security members in different branches have attacked physically some Legislative Council members because they protested against an illegal action by the authority. And this also showed that they need the support of the people, and there's positive things from giving them support, and I think that even the opposition to the outside the authority is giving support to those people. They also have a very important role to play for the future, but there is a big test for them coming next year, when the period of their elections would end, and they should decide, if there would be no elections, what to do. If they continue to sit on their seats and forget about elections, then they failed the first exam, and it would be maybe the last exam. But if they insist on having another democratic process, another elections, then I think we are in the right direction. And I think we should, from now on, work with those people and say that it is the first experience, it's true. Now you have done maybe little job or big job, but we have to see in elections again. Although the elections might be the same as before, with boycotting from different parties, but we should have another elections. To continue talking about the Legislative Council relation with the Executive, according to the basic law, every draft legislation passed by the second or third reading should go to the head of the Executive Authority to ratify. If he ratifies within the period limited for him, and send it back to the Legislative Council, this law should pass. If he refuses to ratify it, then there would be a period of time that they should wait, and if he does not respond to it, then the law would pass without his ratification. But this tool was not yet used by the Legislative Council for two reasons. The first reason is that the basic law is not ratified itself up to date. It passed with the third reading. It was given to the President Arafat, but he did not sign it. And he says he has reasons for that, which we feel that it is not justified. We need to have a basic law even for one day, not for a whole interim period of years. But as you know, by May the interim period would end, but what kind of constitution we would have after that? These regulations, these bylaws, have been done if the basic law is being passed. But because it's not passed yet, so we have the tool, but it was not used. Arafat is the only person who decides which law pass or which law does not pass. Only a few laws, less than 10 laws, were passed in 4 years, which is a number that we feel it is very, very, very small. I know countries who are in the same democratic changes, democratic process in the ex-Soviet Union, who passed in less than 1 year 99 laws. So the Palestinian Authority in 4 years, they only passed less than 10 laws. But the Legislative Council have discussed tens of laws, but it is a very slow process. The second thing that Arafat is also struggling on two fronts. the internal front of building up state institutions, institutionalize the Palestinian society, rebuilding the infrastructure that was destroyed by the Israelis for 30 years, and on the other hand, Israeli governments which either a coward governments which could not take speed action, speed implementation to the agreed agreements, or to governments which continues to think in the same occupying mentality as the Likud government headed by Netanyahu, who still sees that the peace process is not for his benefit, who's still thinking in a very racist way, and who is refusing to recognize the rights of the Palestinian people, even according to the unaccepted agreements for the Palestinians which came out of Oslo or Cairo or White Plantation. So he has two fronts to fight on, but I think that Arafat still catch all the papers in his hand. He's controlling the Palestinian Authority area, also fulfilling his obligations in sometimes violating human rights. And there are many things that needed to be done on the internal level, such as the separation of powers, such as the empowering the judiciary system, which is the only way to have a democratic society, which was weakened by the executive authority and the interventions from the security branches, the interventions from the politicians, the top leaders in the Palestinian Authority, and also weakening the Legislative Council, which was supposed to be empowered during this period to show the real face of the Palestinian people who struggled for 30 years or 50 years to survive in the most difficult situation. Well, the Palestinian people always surprise you. The moment you think that they are depressed, the moment they show that they still have the will to survive. But this also shows that there is real frustration in the Palestinian society. And if we speak about the Palestinian people, we should speak about the Palestinian people in diaspora, or the Palestinian people in the occupied territories, and the Palestinian people inside the Green Line. As we always say, and we insist that we are one people. But for example, those Palestinians inside the Green Line see that their case was forgotten. They are not on the agenda of the peace process at all. So they show frustration and depressed from the peace process, although some of the traditional leadership says that the important thing is to see peace between the Israeli state and the Palestinian state. Those who live outside, I think they are more depressed, because also the refugee issue is one of the most difficult issues which nobody have really give attention up to date and gave alternative solutions of what might happen to those people. We also speak about the General Assembly Resolution 194 about the right to return and the right to compensation. But how we are dealing with this issue practically on a daily basis, I think this issue is not given real attention, and it makes lots of frustration outside. Internally, inside the occupied territories, the frustration is from the continuous Israeli violations, which accompanied by violations from the Palestinian Authority, and sometimes we are not allowed to make comparison. For example, when you come to the issue of torture, they see that we are always fighting the Israeli practices of torture for the Palestinian prisoners, which became legitimate by the Israeli High Court. And the whole world recognized that this is illegal, and moderate physical pressure is torture. But the Palestinian Authority continues to torture Palestinian people. So how can you justify this? The second thing, the Palestinian Authority still discriminate in employment between those who are peace process, pro-peace process, and against the peace process. So it's the same as with the Israelis when they were discriminating between those who were pro, let's say, Israel and those who are national Palestinian resistance. Also from the corruption, and when they see also that some people are building villas and high buildings and some people are living in
I'm Omar Kura, your guest host for Mideast Realities. You have just seen the second part of an interview that I've conducted with Mr. Mohammed Abu Harthia, the General Director of the Al-Haq Human Rights Group based in Ramallah in Palestine. Mr. Abu Harthia has spoken this episode and the previous one about the human rights situation in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, especially after the arrival of the Palestinian Authority following the signing of the Oslo Peace Accords. Mr. Abu Harthia also addressed the realities of the so-called peace process and the deteriorating economic and human rights and political situation of the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. Thank you for watching Mideast Realities. Tune in next week for the concluding parts of the interview. Thank you.